A small challenger to the big banks today shut its doors, and with handing back $100 million to people who put money into it. Business Editor Ross Greenwood joins us now. Ross, this bank, Volt Bank, how important was it?
Well, it's interesting just to note with a bank such as Volt. I think it's really important, mainly because you'd like to see challenges to the big banks really sort of get up and flourish and have a future. But there's been a history in Australia where banks such as Volt have really struggled, mainly because either A, the margins get squeezed, and that's largely as a result of significant competition in the Australian banking market. And so eventually it gets to a point where investors who have got to ultimately fund these things and put more money in really find it hard to justify it. And that's what appears to have happened in the case of Volt. But as I say, it's not the first. And we can show you a graphic basically we made up today to show you a little bit of the history here. So this is Volt, which today is closed down, handed back its banking licence. A bank back in December 2020, Ginger Bank, did exactly the same thing. Another bank, another Neobank as they call them, 86400, bought out by the NAB. Up was bought out by Bendigo Bank. Another one called Revolut is still waiting for an Australian depository licence. So it just shows how difficult it is. Now, Australia, of course, does have a whole bunch of friendly societies. It's got credit unions out there. It's got building societies. So it's got a range of other banking institutions, and it's got smaller banks as well. But really still, even now, the vast majority of deposits, more than 80%, is with the big four banks, as it is with the mortgage books as well. And that's really ultimately the reason why it is hard for banks such as Volt to break into the system.
Ross, people obviously talking about the weakness at the moment, various signs of difficulties, stresses in the economy, but retail sales are still booming.
Oh, absolutely booming. So this was something of, if you like, a wake-up call where people are talking about recession and economic slowdown. But it's what's happening now, not what is happening in the future. So if we look at the May retail sales, and we know, of course, all the word about higher interest rates was around the place. Look what happened. You've got monthly retail sales of 0.9%. So over the past year, you've got sales that are up 10%, which is phenomenal, right? Normally the growth is 2.5%, something of that nature. So it just goes to show. Now, the interesting part about this is if you go back to last May, the comparison, you might say, oh, well, it was COVID affected, all that sort of stuff. It actually wasn't COVID affected. And so $34.2 billion worth of sales. The one thing to contemplate is as inflation creeps in, though, people are really not changing their lifestyle. They're just paying more money. They're not necessarily getting more goods. What they're actually having to do is pay higher prices. But the sales, I've got to say, they were strong in fashion. They were strong in department stores. They were strong in restaurants and cafes. So it seems as though people are prepared to accept the rises in prices that are coming down the line right now. But the question is, for how long will they accept those increases?
On the subject of boom or bust, there's a big warning today, Ross, from the man in charge of one of the big credit ratings agencies. Talk us through it.
So late yesterday, Moody's reaffirmed Australia's AAA credit rating, which naturally Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer, did acknowledge and say that we're one of only 9 countries in the world that has AAA credit ratings from the 3 major credit ratings agencies, being Standard & Poor's, being Moody's and Fitch. Well, by it, complete chance, the boss of Fitch is in Australia right now. And I managed to catch up with him today to talk about the issues ahead, including, in his opinion, the prospect of recession in parts of Europe and also in the United States.
Our view is that interest rates definitely move higher and that economic activity is going to be impacted by that, but it's probably more into next year than this year. So recession is a real risk.
Oddly enough, Kieran, he tells me that basically if any part of the world that you'd like to be right now, notwithstanding the increasing government debts and increasing interest rates, Australia would be one place that would most definitely be on his list.
Very interesting indeed. Thanks, Ross. I look forward to seeing that interview. Business Now at 4:30 p.m. Eastern.